Welcome to the 2020 Awards podcast. Today we've asked our guest screenwriter Brian McDonald to share what he believes is an example of a great screenplay. He chose the 1979 film Norma Rae starring Sally Field.
Whatever it is, I didn't do it.
Norma, you've got the biggest mouth in this mill. Give us a longer break. Give us more smoking time. Give us a Kotex pad machine.
Do it, now shut up.
If you're a film industry professional and would like to join our voting syndicate, please contact us through our website, which is 2020awards.org. I'm joined here today with our co-producer, Lee Christopherson.
And, as always, our host and president of the 2020 Awards, the one, the only, Kris Kristensen.
Yeah, that was a little more than I was hoping for.
Okay, I can try it again. Yeah, here's Kris.
I like that one.
Great.
We are joined once again today by filmmaker and author Brian McDonald. Brian has written several books on storytelling, including Invisible Ink, The Golden Theme, and most recently Ink Spots, which is a compilation of essays from his Invisible Ink blog. Brian has also taught down at, what would we say? You don't teach down at Pixar, do you?
Yeah, I teach
right.
as part of Pixar University.
He teaches at Pixar U, PU, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome back, Brian.
Hey, thanks.
So Norma Rae is a drama about a North Carolina mill factory worker, played by Sally Field, whose entire family works at the same mill as her. In fact, the whole town pretty much works there. Her parents both suffer from various physical disabilities as a result of their Dickensian working conditions, and when a union organizer played by Ron Leibman from New York City arrives, Norma slowly comes around to seeing the need to lead her factory despite much resistance to joining the union. So I asked you to pick something that you thought is an example of a good example of what it is you do, and you picked Norma Rae. What is it about this that made you choose this?
Well, Norma Rae is a good example of what I try to do.
All right, fair enough.
What you teach?
What I teach and what I try to do. It's aspirational that way. It's one of the best scripts I can think of. I mean, I'm sure there are better scripts, maybe. But in my mind, you just move laterally. Like, oh, there are other scripts as good as Norma Rae.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much better you get than that.
Yeah. What is it about this?
This?
What puts this on that tier?
Well, it's interesting because there's the union aspect, right? And it could be very political. And yet it is a true drama in that it's not political. It's really about a woman figuring out that she has worth that is separate and apart from her relationship with men.
Right.
And so it becomes a more universal thing where the union thing, although it's a big part of the movie, takes a backseat to her personal story.
Yeah.
And that's really rare. Most people will either hit you over the head with their politics,
Yeah.
or or delve into the emotional thing and forget about the other thing. It's just this perfect balance.
Yeah. Yeah, the union is a backdrop.
Yeah.
For this.
Yeah, it really is. There's so many great things. First of all, it has an amazing first act. The first act of that movie is incredible, and right away it starts, and it tells you who Norma Rae is. Norma Rae is at the very beginning of the movie in a break room talking to a coworker, and the coworker says something about Norma Rae seeing her. I saw your friend drives a big car, she says, and there's a whole thing about how Norma Rae is sort of a promiscuous character, and so right away you know how people view her. She says, well, if you looked at the motel registry, you'd see my name on there too. She's kind of saying, I was there, he was there, get over it. And then anyway,
But she owns it. She owns who she is.
Yeah, she owns who she is.
Yeah.
But then she says something to her mother. Her mother hasn't touched her lunch, and she says, "Mama, you haven't opened your bag," or whatever, however she puts it. And she said, and her mom can't hear her. It turns out her mom is deaf.
She didn't hear one word I say. She doesn't hear you right now.
Now, you know that happens, Norma Rae. It happens all
Well,
the
it
time.
doesn't happen to my mama.
It'll pass off. Just temporary.
Oh, well, that makes it okay. She's only deaf for 1 hour. She's only deaf for 2 hours. She's only deaf all day.
She can get herself another job.
What other job in this town? This is the only job.
This is the only job. That's what she says. Right. And it's in the first act. Beautiful. Then you know, okay.
You know the stakes.
Yeah. Norma Rae immediately is the person she's going to become. There are the seeds of who she is. She's already fighting.
Yeah. It's the Wizard of Oz.
Right.
Yeah.
She's already fighting for what's right.
Yeah.
Before there's a union guy, before any of that stuff, you know exactly who she is. She is ripe to be that person.
Yeah.
Anyway, Norma Rae goes to a hotel, meets a guy who she's apparently having this affair with, and he wants to... this guy doesn't care about Norma Rae, and it's clear in the scene. And they have just had sex, and she says, this is the last time. And he's like, well, what do you mean it's the last time? You know, this guy's talking about how he's going to be with his wife somewhere, and he wants to meet up with Norma Rae later next week or whatever. And that's when she says this is the last time. And then he tells her she's nothing, essentially. Like, you're dumping me. You're this hick.
How dare you?
How dare you dump me? And he slaps her, hits her, knocks her into a wall. And she's leaving, and she has already met Reuben quickly, who's the union organizer. Very quickly, he came to her parents' house where she lives and said, hey, I'm here to start a union or whatever.
Well, he was looking for a room to rent.
Right, he was looking for a room because he wanted to meet a mill family.
The people. Right.
Yeah. And so, anyway, so she's already met him once, but she's walking past his room. He's happens to be at this hotel. And she knows he's there, but that's not important to this, what I'm saying. So, anyway, she's walking by, and he sees that her nose is bleeding and invites her in and gives her some ice. And Sally Field's character says something really great. Norma Rae says something really great. She says, me and men, right? And she says, but if it weren't men, I don't know what it would be.
Oh, okay.
Which is so nice because it's like, what is it? Well, it's going to be that she's this union organizer. It's going to be, she's going to replace that with something else, right? So the first act becomes the foundation for everything else. It makes everything else matter. So if you don't have her saying, if you don't see this guy disrespecting her and slapping her against, and abusing her in that way and having her say, me and men, if it weren't men, what would it be? You don't have anything except for a movie about a person trying to get a union together. Mm-hmm. But you don't have the deeper piece of it. I mean, that's what I think is missing most of the time now. There's no first act. Right? They get right to the meat.
We talked about that with Unforgiven.
Right.
It had a weak first act.
It had a weak first act, but I think a strong first act makes everything else matter in a different way. It's the foundation you build on. Yeah. And the foundation of Norma Rae is really strong.
Mm-hmm. We should take a second. Who wrote it?
The Harriet Frank and Irving Ravetch.
Right.
Yeah. And they were married.
Oh, they were?
They were married, yeah. And they'd been writing a lot. They wrote
HUD.
They wrote HUD. They wrote Long Hot Summer. They worked with Martin Ritt a lot, who's the director. Martin Ritt is actually a big influence on me.
Yeah.
If I joined up with you, would I lose my job?
No way. You can wear a union button as big as a Frisbee when you go to work. You can talk union to any mill hands who want to listen as long as it's during a break. You can take union pamphlets to the mill and pass them along. There's not a goddamn thing they can do to touch you.
I was never a very good Girl Scout. I'll go along with you.
You're the fish I wanted to hook.
Well, you got me.
This character is learning that she has worth beyond the sexual relationship she has with men, which she's sort of using to define herself. Mm-hmm. Even though she's not happy about it, it's clear she's not happy about this. And so she's ripe for this opportunity to change and to grow. And in fact, she sees Reuben has a suitcase, and Sally Field sees a picture of a woman, and she says, "Oh, that must be your girlfriend." And she's got big eyes or whatever, and they talk about her for a second, and he says she's smart. So, well, what makes her so smart? Well, books. She reads books. And there's this thing where Sally Field, she goes on, she gets more and more like she's reading books, she's opening, the whole world opens up for her.
Right.
But it's not unusual for her character. She's just never been given the opportunity to grow in the way she's growing. Someone cares about her, and it's not physical.
Or wants something else out of her.
Right, but clearly there's in fact she gets married at one point in the movie, and her husband says to her, "Have you slept with him?" And she says, "No, he's in my mind though."
Oh, right.
He's in my head.
Yeah,
he's in my head.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when they're in the swimming hole at one point,
that's basically the sex scene.
yeah, they're in the swimming hole, and Reuben fell in a cow pie, and
Right.
Anyway, they end up in this swimming hole together, and Norma Rae says, "Reuben, you got a real skinny build." She says, and she's talking about him physically, and it's really interesting how they talk around sex, but it's never.
In fact, there's that whole scene where she's like, "You need to get laid, or you
Right,
need
yeah.
to get a woman or something." Or what was the last time you had a woman? Because he's been down there for months.
Yeah, he's from New York.
And then he's like, "Yeah, well, that's gonna happen right now." And so he like goes off to get a hooker or something.
Yeah.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's definitely an attraction,
And there's tension.
I'm just glad it wasn't acted on.
No, well,
Yeah.
it wasn't acted on for a very specific reason, I think. It wasn't acted upon because this is the first. She cares about this guy more than she's cared about the guys.
For sure.
Right. So there's something deeper here. In fact,
This guy respects her.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which has never happened before.
Right. And at the very end of the movie, which I can't tell you, brings me to tears every time when they're saying goodbye. And he says, "Write me." And she says, "Anybody read your mail?"
Oh, right.
Right?
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Right?
Yeah.
So there's obviously something there.
Yeah.
But they don't act on it because it's a much deeper relationship than she's ever had.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. So it's important. It's part of the piece that it's never acted upon. It's not let's buck convention, but it's this is another kind of relationship for Norma Rae.
I don't think you could have a movie like that today where the two leads
Oh God.
don't
no.
hook up.
No,
No.
you couldn't.
Like some studio would insist they did.
Yeah. But it's so, that.
And George Clooney plays the union leader.
Right. Well, that's just it, too. George Clooney and name whoever.
Naomi Watts or whoever, right?
Yeah. Sally Field was not considered beautiful enough to be a movie star.
Right.
She
was cute.
She was cute,
Yeah.
and she wasn't
Spunky.
considered. Yeah. But the people they looked at for this part who turned it down, Jane Fonda turned it down. All these
Faye Dunaway.
Faye Dunaway turned it down. It's like, thank God they turned it down.
They would
Yeah.
have been terrible. Yeah.
They would have been
Yeah.
terrible. There was something you believe that Sally Field is that person.
And she grew up in that town.
Yeah, you believe it. She's not too glamorous to have grown up there.
Right.
Well, I like that she's so little and slight, but she's just huge.
Yeah.
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 It's funny though when you say Jane Fonda, I could totally see her in that role.
Right.
That seems like a role she would have done.
Right. But I don't think it would be the same movie.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
That's true. Faye Dunaway would have been weird.
Yeah.
It would have been really weird.
I don't think you can buy that Faye Dunaway doesn't have $500,000 in the bank at any given time in her movies in the 70s.
If Faye Dunaway wasn't, she would have played like one of the foremen.
Right.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
She should have been a foreman.
Well, yeah, there is something really nice. Norma Rae's power comes from inside.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, she's a small person.
Yeah.
And all of her power comes from inside. And you can see her fighting against the intimidation. At one point, she's trying to, she's copying down a post.
And she says that everything like, I am doing this, I'm doing this, and getting it.
And it's a post that the factories put up saying that if there's a union, then the black men are going to take over, and they're going to right. And so Reuben says you have to copy that down. I need every word of it. And she's brave, and she does it, and the people that run the factory are trying to get her to stop, and you can tell that it's a frightening thing for her to do.
Her voice changes; it gets a little bit higher and faster and quicker, and
and it makes her braver. It's amazing, and it's emotional, and I'm in awe of the movie. In fact, it's hard for me to put that DVD in the thing because I will be taken away someplace. I can't tell you how hard it was for me to put it in the machine because I love it that much and admire it so much. It's like I can't explain what that movie does to me.
The other thing that's interesting, I thought, she keeps saying the more the merrier.
Yeah, she does. She says it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, oh, that's a union.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she says it all the time. Like I always say, the more the merrier.
It's like, oh, yeah, she's a union person.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
There's no fat on it, that movie. It all matters. It all matters. It's a pretty sweet little movie. I don't know how I try to write like that. I try to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of unions, we got to follow our union rules and do some advertising.
Union.
Those bastard unions. The boys down at the union.
The podcast union.
Podcast union.
The wireless 186. The local wireless. What would that be? The LAN? Nah, I don't know. Anyway, today's episode is sponsored by Fremont Abbey. Abbey Arts is a non-profit curating arts and cultural events for all ages at unusual spaces around Seattle and on their home venue, Fremont Abbey Arts Center in Upper Fremont. Ongoing events include The Round on second Tuesdays, which features musicians, slam poets, and live painters sharing the stage. Or check out the Moth storytelling event on the first Thursdays. Concerts vary throughout the month, so check their schedule at fremontabbey.org. Our other sponsor today is Hilliard's Beer, brewed and canned in Seattle's Ballard neighborhood, but drunk everywhere. Visit their tap room Thursday through Sunday. You can get more info on them at hilliardsbeer.com.
You're a pretty woman.
I was good at 18, but things had kind of slipped and slid.
You look all right to me.
Keep the lights down low, I'm all right.
Well, I'll take you where it's dark.
I've been there.
The other thing I like about this script is that being a huge proponent of the hero's journey, the 45-minute mark, which is a thematic illustration of how a character is changing, and I always kind of look for that because I think for some reason that's kind of the hardest one to do because it can get kind of clumsy if it's not handled right. And she gets married.
Right.
At 45 minutes. That's their wedding. And it's like, oh, that's a union. Again, it's a union. It's a coming together. And so it's like, oh, that was a really nice way to do that, I thought.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, that there is a tension. And from the very beginning, with her husband, between her husband and Reuben.
Yeah.
Right? From the very beginning, like when the husband takes Norma Rae out for a beer, Reuben's there, and he's like,
he shows up.
He shows up. Yeah, and Norma Rae invites him over to their table.
The more the merrier.
Yeah, the more the merrier.
Yeah.
And he's like, do we need another person? Like her husband's like her husband to be.
It was like their first. It was like one of their first
dates.
dates. Yeah. Who brings a friend to your first date?
Yeah. And in fact, the husband won't even shake his hand if you remember.
Yeah.
Well, of course, she's the town slut, and what's he thinking right there?
Right.
Sure.
And he suspected something.
Yeah. And so anyway, that's an interesting tension because later on, she's making calls trying to get people to join the union. And her husband's like, what are you doing? The kids are going without this, and you didn't get to the grocery store, and you didn't do this, and I don't have laundry.
Dirty clothes. The kids wore dirty clothes to school.
Yeah. And so there's this, which is it? Is it the family or is it the union? Which is it? And it's really interesting that conflict starts at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really...
And I have to say, I really, really liked the way that their marriage is treated in the sense that, because I think, there is that risk of having the sort of typical, like, wife beater and just kind of a redneck husband It's like, you got to do this, and
Sure.
and he's not like that.
No, he's not like...
He gave his speech, and then he felt bad.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's like, God, I'm being a jerk.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not like, I want you to take care of me, woman. It's more of like...
We're here, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the scene where she comes back from the jail.
Right.
And
sits down with her kids.
Yeah, and she's like, "I love you, and your dad loves you," and it's like no, this is family,
right?
And it's treated very realistically, I think. And
you're gonna hear some things about me.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Well, there's also the very nice thing too, because when she's in jail, she calls Reuben.
Yeah,
she gets one phone call. She calls Reuben, and her husband later says to Reuben, "Why did she call you? Why didn't she call me?" And he says, "Well, she knew I could make bail." But he basically says to her husband, look, she's changing. She's learning to be another person, essentially. I don't remember the exact words, and he says, either you can handle that or you can't." Right. Right?
And it's also, she doesn't need you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really interesting thing.
Yeah.
But the husband, too, does something really nice where when he asks Sally Field, have you slept with him? And she says, no, but he's in my head. He talks about how much he loves her, and he says, there's no one else in my head.
Yeah.
Right. Which is really nice because it sort of cements that union.
Yeah.
Right? That, she is loved. She's actually finally loved.
Yeah.
So she doesn't need Reuben in that way. It's really nice.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
It's full of tender moments, and you don't see that much anymore. You used to see it a lot more. Yeah. But you don't see it. They're either forced, like we have to have a tender moment here. They don't seem organic, and everything seemed organic and thematic. There is something very sweet at the ending when they're saying goodbye, and Sally Field asks if anybody reads your mail. There's something very tender about that.
Well, and very intimate.
Intimate.
Yeah.
And
that's a very intimate thing, too. It's like, I might write you something.
Right.
Knowing that.
Yeah. And they don't even hug at the end. They shake hands.
Right.
Which is interesting.
Isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. He says something really nice about her, and she says, Reuben, I think you like me. And he says he does, but it's so sweet because nothing happens. It makes it so much sweeter than it could ever be.
Sure.
Yeah, and the fact that they shake hands, like, well, this is our relationship is officially this.
Well, it's respect.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's pretty beautiful. And here's the other thing that people don't really realize, I think. I told somebody this was one of my favorite movies. Like, I probably have 5 movies that change places depending on which day it is, which is my favorite movie. But this is probably at the top more than most.
Today's Wednesday, by the way.
Okay, so it's my favorite today.
Oh, okay. Great. Well, that's good timing.
Yeah.
Glad we did it today.
But there's a few. There's Paper Moon, and they move around.
Yeah.
But this one stays pretty close to the top all the time. And when I said that to someone, she said to me, but that's a woman in the lead. And I was like, well, I guess that matters, but she was surprised, that it wasn't like Rocky. I love Rocky, but you know what I mean? I think she was surprised that, but it didn't, I don't even think of it like that.
Because only women could watch women movies.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Well, this is
it's not a chick flick.
Yeah, this is, again, going to the demographic thing, right?
Yeah.
That's just a good movie. That's just a good story. It doesn't seem to be for men or for women or for anybody. It's for everybody who wants to see a good story and get involved in this person's life and
world.
It doesn't feel gender specific. It's just a good story.
Yeah.
And I wish they told more good stories with women leads or with minority leads or whatever.
Yeah.
I wish they did more of that. They tend to be geared toward a certain demographic, and that makes worse things, I think. But this is just a straight piece of drama, a beautifully written piece of drama. So I wish they did more of that, and that's one of the things that's really great about it.
Well, I wish they just told better stories.
Well, that's just what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
I mean, regardless, like, if it's a dude or a white dude or a woman or a person of color, it doesn't matter. It's just like, just tell me a good story.
Yeah. But I think in some ways it does matter. And the way that it matters is that if you only tell stories about a certain demographic or mostly about a certain demographic, then it's harder to see those other people as people as part of your human experience, right? But you watch Norma Rae, and she's a human being, and it's just part of the human experience.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not fair. It's like I don't like that there are no parts for women at a certain age, because it's like, well, people exist after a certain age. Yeah. So why, you know what I mean? It's not fair to what it is to be a human being to eliminate those things.
Well, we are moving into Logan's Run territory.
We are. That's another podcast.
Yes. Episode 22.
Join us next week.
Oh, God, that would be great to do that one.
Logan's Run?
Yeah.
I've never seen Logan's Run.
Really?
Maybe we should put it on the list.
Oh.
I've seen parts of it.
Logan's okay. I'm gonna like go fly in the face of what you just said, but Logan's Run were my first movie breasts.
You've told me that before.
Yeah, it's a very special place in my heart.
Oh.
No, I love Logan's Run.
I'll check it out.
And it would actually, I think it's one of those movies I wouldn't mind seeing it remade.
It should be remade, actually, because it's not that great.
Yeah,
it's good enough to be remade.
Yeah,
like Ocean's 11.
Yeah. It's good enough to be remade. Although I haven't seen.
I've seen neither.
Yeah.
I have them on DVD if you want to borrow them.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting about the ending, I thought, it's kind of a Jesus story, because she kind of ends up with nothing. She's totally sacrifices herself. I mean, she
loses her job.
She loses her job.
Right.
And her friend goes back to New York.
Right.
And she's kind of left there.
Well, she sacrificed herself
right.
for
she sacrificed herself for the town, exactly.
Right.
So.
Well, heroes often do that.
Right.
Right.
No.
So
I'm not saying it's bad.
No.
I'm saying, I wasn't saying like it's kind of a Jesus story where he screws everyone. No, I'm saying I meant it like
no, I know. Yeah, no, but I was just saying that it's
yeah.
not an unusual thing for a hero to do.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Because that shows the
selflessness.
Well,
exactly.
The depth of their conviction.
Yeah.
Right. To sacrifice
right.
like that. So yeah.
Well, there's that other scene that you always talk about with Ron Leibman where he goes to the church.
Oh yeah.
Why don't you talk about that?
I only talk about it because there's something. He goes to the church and nobody has shown up.
Right.
Right. For a union meeting because the union. Turns out the factory has cut people down to like 3 days a week or something. And it's like half the pay but twice as much work or something.
Longer shifts.
Yeah, longer shifts. But he doesn't know that yet, and he shows up at the church where they meet, and nobody's there. And I guess the only reason I talk about it is because it's a hard scene for writers to write. Because it means you have to get a camera crew there, and you have to light it, you have to dress the set, and you have to do all these things like you were shooting a scene. And a lot of times when people go to write a scene, they think, well, I have to have a scene. But all that happens is he's in the church, nobody's there, end of scene. I guess it reminds me as a writer, like, I don't have to have any more scene than I need.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I like about it. It's no more scene than you need.
Right.
It says what it has to say, and it gets in and it gets out, and nobody gets hurt. That's what I like about it.
And it does it without any dialogue.
Without dialogue. Well,
there's no like, gosh darn it, no one showed up here.
Where is everybody?
Where is everybody?
Yeah, right, yeah.
They're all down at the bar.
I feel like I'm all alone in this.
Well, I mean, and that's part of the thing that makes it beautiful screenwriting, right? A lot of the stuff is done with pictures.
Yeah.
Right? So that when Sally Field goes back to her machine and her coworker ties the apron thing on, there's no words there either. There's no dialogue, and that's screenwriting. That's writing with pictures. People forget about that. They talk a lot about dialogue. It's one of those things when I hear people talking about screenwriting and they talk about dialogue, and that's all they talk about, and I'm like, you don't know anything about screenwriting.
Yeah.
Like, you can't say that to people, but that's the truth. Because I never hear anybody talk about the visual storytelling.
Yeah.
They only talk about the dialogue, stuff they can see.
We're going to talk about that in an upcoming episode.
All right.
So
okay.
Yeah. I mean, anything else? I mean, obviously, we could do a couple episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I could
with you.
Yeah,
but,
I could go on and on about it, different aspects of the film and performances and directing and those things. I mean, I just think, you can do a film as good. I'm not sure how much better you can get. It's sort of in the 70s, something happened, I think, and what happened was the method actors and that stuff, the actor studio people sort of hit their peak at a time when there was a sort of realistic kind of filmmaking that happened, and those things converged, and so you had really great craft in terms of acting and directing, meeting this really great craft of cinematography and art direction, where they were really trying to make it feel like it was really happening. I mean, I feel like now everything's very polished and feels too polished, and I think it makes the writing feel more written and the acting feel more acty. But this is like the perfect convergence. It almost feels like it was improvised.
Yeah.
And that happened a lot in the 70s. You can see some of it in Rocky. You can see some of it in Jaws. There's a lot of it. It was really a great time, and this is getting towards the end of that. This is 79.
Yeah.
But beautifully executed all the way through.
Cool. Well, if you haven't seen Norma Rae, definitely see it.
It's a great movie, and thanks for bringing it to our attention and giving me another excuse to watch it, because I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I know you always talk about it, and it's like, I really need to watch that again, and so it's like, all right, yeah, okay, I see why he talks about this a lot.
Yeah, so, it gets better the more you watch it.
Oh, I bet it does.
Yeah.
I bet it does.
Yeah.
So, great. Well, thank you, Brian.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank our sponsors again.
Yes.
Hilliard's beer. So good, you forget what you're drinking. Hilliard's beer. Available at a supermarket near you.
And the Fremont Abbey, located in downtown Fremont, for all of your artistic, ceremonial needs.
All your Abbey needs.
Yeah. So, if you're a movie lover and you would like to support us, you can subscribe to the 2020 Film Club. Your annual subscription gets you into 10 of our monthly for your consideration screenings here in Seattle, plus a ticket to our annual ceremony in February. And it's over $100 value for only $40. And to enroll, just visit us at 2020awards.org and look for the subscriber link. And while you're at that website, you can find a whole bunch of other stuff that we do. Until next time, remember, it's never too late to start thinking about the past.